Ever had your car stall at a red light, hesitate when accelerating, or just feel off? Before you blame the fuel pump or battery, you might be overlooking one tiny part that controls everything. Yep, this little guy tells your engine when to fire and when to breathe. And when it starts to go bad, your car turns into a confused mess. In this video, I'm breaking down 9 symptoms of a bad crank sensor in reverse order, and how to test it, where to find it, and how to fix it fast, even if you're not a mechanic. Let's get into it. Think of your engine like a perfectly timed orchestra. Each piston, each spark, each fuel spray, all in rhythm. The crankshaft position sensor is the conductor. It tracks the position and speed of your crankshaft, the big rotating piece that converts piston movement into spinning force. Now here's why that matters. Your engine doesn't just run, it runs on precise timing. Milliseconds matter. If the spark fires too early or too late, the whole system stumbles. This tiny sensor constantly feeds data to the ECU, the brain of your car, helping it decide exactly when to ignite fuel and keep everything smooth. Without accurate data from this sensor, your ECU doesn't know when to fire the spark plugs or inject fuel, and that's when things start getting ugly. Symptom 9, unusual exhaust smell. Smelling fuel or rotten eggs from your exhaust. That's likely unburned fuel. Your engine's firing off beat because the sensor's misfiring or delayed. Imagine trying to cook with your oven on the wrong setting. Nothing comes out right. This happens because the crankshaft position sensor isn't telling the ECU when to ignite the air-fuel mix. So fuel gets injected, but not fully burned. That unburned fuel goes straight out the tailpipe, creating a strong, nasty smell. It's not just annoying, it's also bad for your catalytic converter and emission system. If you're noticing that smell more than usual, especially during cold starts or acceleration, it's time to get that sensor checked. Symptom 8, no start at all cranks but never starts. Your ECU doesn't know the crankshaft position, so it won't fire the spark plugs. It's like trying to play a song with no rhythm. Silence. When this sensor fails completely, the engine control unit is basically blind. It doesn't know the exact piston position, so it doesn't send the spark or fuel signal. You might hear the engine turning over, but it just won't catch. And in some cases, it might start one day, then refuse the next. This can leave you stranded unexpectedly, especially during cold starts or after short drives. If your car's turning over but refusing to run, don't overlook the crank sensor. Symptom 7, check engine light. You get the dreaded check engine light, and a scan tool shows crank sensor codes. It's your car's way of saying, hey, something's seriously off here. The crankshaft position sensor sends constant data to the ECU. When that signal becomes weak, erratic, or completely stops, the ECU immediately flags it. Most modern vehicles will log a diagnostic trouble code, usually starting with P0335 or something similar. Even if your car still seems to run okay, that light is warning you that timing and fuel delivery might be off. Ignoring it can lead to bigger problems like misfires, hard starts, and more expensive damage later on. Always take that light seriously, especially if it's paired with other symptoms. Symptom 6, poor fuel economy. If your fuel gauge is dipping faster than usual, that's a red flag. Bad timing equals inefficient combustion equals more trips to the gas station. When the crankshaft position sensor sends inaccurate signals, the ECU struggles to calculate the right time to inject fuel. That often means the engine gets too much fuel or burns it too late, leading to waste. Even if you're driving the same routes, you'll notice you're filling up more often. This doesn't just hurt your wallet, it puts extra strain on your engine and emissions system. If your MPG drops suddenly with no change in driving habits, the crank sensor could be quietly costing you every time you drive. Symptom 5, engine misfires. Your car jerks or shudders while accelerating. It's like the engine hiccups because it's firing at the wrong time. That's a crank sensor issue, plain and simple. When the crankshaft sensor sends incorrect data, the ECU can't time the spark correctly, and that leads to a misfire. You'll feel it as a sudden jolt, hesitation, or stumble, especially when going uphill or trying to pass. It might feel like the car is choking mid-sentence. Left unchecked, repeated misfires can damage your catalytic converter and even warp your engine internals. So if your ride isn't smooth anymore, don't just blame dirty fuel. That sensor could be behind the chaos. Symptom 4. Jerky acceleration hit the gas, and nothing happens for a second. The sensor isn't telling the engine when to go. It's like a delayed reaction from someone who didn't hear you. This happens when the crankshaft sensor gives erratic or delayed signals to the ECU. The computer gets confused about when to inject fuel and fire the spark, causing hesitation. You press the pedal expecting power, but the engine's still trying to figure things out. This can be especially dangerous when merging onto highways or making quick turns. It feels like your car is hesitating in mid-thought, and that delay can cost you both safety and confidence behind the wheel. Symptom 3. Engine stalling. Your engine dies randomly while driving or idling. That's the sensor cutting out, and your engine shuts down like a phone with no signal. When the crankshaft position sensor fails intermittently, it causes the ECU to lose track of engine timing, and when the computer doesn't know what's happening inside the engine, it simply shuts everything down as a safety measure. You could be at a stoplight or cruising down the road and boom. Engine off, zero warning. This kind of sudden stall can be not just frustrating, but flat out dangerous, especially in traffic. If your car is quitting without notice, it's time to take that sensor seriously. Symptom 2. Hard starting cranking longer than usual to get the car started. When the crank sensor lags, the ECU can't find the start line for ignition. Normally, the ECU depends on this sensor to know when each piston is in the right spot to fire, but when the signal is delayed or inconsistent, the timing is thrown off, and your engine just keeps turning over. This can be worse during cold starts or after the car has been sitting. You might get a start after several tries, or sometimes not at all. If your car used to fire right up but now struggles daily, that crank sensor could be the invisible culprit behind your frustration. Symptom 1. Rough idling. Feel your car shaking at stoplights. That uneven idle is a classic symptom. The engine's getting poor timing info and struggling to stay balanced. When the crankshaft position sensor starts failing, the ECU gets inconsistent data, which messes with fuel injection and spark timing, especially when the engine is at rest. You'll feel the car vibrate or pulse while parked, and in some cases, the RPMs might jump slightly or sound uneven. It's like the engine is holding its breath between beats. This symptom often comes first before more serious problems show up, so catching it early can save you a breakdown later. Don't ignore that idle. It's your car whispering for help. Alright, so you've got some of these symptoms. Let's test the sensor before we go throwing parts at the problem. Set your multimeter to ohms. Resistance should be between 200 to 1200 ohms. Next, test AC voltage while cranking the engine. Should read around 0.2 to 2 volts. No resistance or no voltage. The sensor is probably shot. Check for power on the supply wire, usually 5 volts or 12 volts. Check signal wire while cranking. Look for voltage pulses or a square wave using an oscilloscope. No signal? Yep, you guessed it. Bad sensor. This varies a bit by car model, but here's where to check. Near the crankshaft pulley, around the transmission bell, housing close to the flywheel, or timing cover pro tip. Look around the bottom of the engine near the firewall or timing belt. Still lost? Google your car model crankshaft sensor location. Super easy to find images. Look, this isn't one of those maybe later repairs. If you ignore a bad crank sensor, you risk stalling in traffic, dangerous, losing acceleration or power on the highway, getting stranded in a parking lot, burning more fuel, wasting money. Worse, inconsistent firing can mess with your catalytic converter, and that's a $1,000 plus fix. The good news? It's not expensive. Parts, $50 to $150. OEM versus aftermarket. Labor, $70 to $250. Depends on your mechanic and how buried it is. DIYer, if you've got a socket set, and 30 to 60 minutes. You can do it yourself. Just make sure you disconnect the battery and follow your car's service manual. So yeah, a tiny sensor causing all these big headaches. But once you know the signs, it's easy to fix before it leaves you stranded. If your car's been acting weird, don't just wait for it to fail completely. Test it, replace it, drive smooth again. You've got this. If this video helped you out, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more no BS car fixes, and drop your questions in the comments. I read and reply to everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.